1. Introduction. RAWSEP view: the United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the eco-design wood stove, and international convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view: purple air PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary. Episode 57 DFU March 25th, 2025. America has been lucky on bird flu so far, a brain drain to Europe. In episode 57 DFU 1, United States: America has been lucky on bird flu so far. 2, United States: formula of fries and Froot Loops. Washington bends to the Kennedy MAHA agenda. 3, Europe in defiance of Donald Trump. Is a European Security Council emerging? 4, France: the Trump policies worry scientists. France and others put out a welcome mat. 5, Germany: the new parliament of Germany is sworn in with women, a rarer sight. 6, German parliament sits for first time with AfD as main opposition. 7th March 25th, 2025. The New York Times headlines. 8th March 25th, 2025. The Guardian headlines. Main content: 1, United States: America has been lucky on bird flu so far. RAWSEP view: analyzing the anti-scientific views of an unqualified person who has been paradoxically put in charge of the Department of Health and Human Services is daunting. The list of the new anti-scientific ideas that RFK Junior is putting out there begins with 1, letting the bird flu virus run through the flocks rather than cull and control outbreaks of bird flu and poultry. 1b, RFK Junior has been told that of the 70 human H5N1 cases reported over the last year in the United States, there has been only 1 death, and for that reason RFK Jr. made proposal number 1A. Number 2A, if H5N1 is in fact milder compared with past outbreaks in the Middle East and Asia, it may be because in the United States many infections may have occurred through eye exposure, perhaps through splashes of contaminated milk during routine farm operations, rather than through inhalation. 2B, RFK Jr. has been told that the most widespread variant of H5N1 in American cows, B13, is responsible for most cases of pink eye. 2 other variants, D13 and D11, which are found mostly in wild birds and farm poultry, are behind the 3 severe cases seen in the United States. This has led some to speculate that these variants might be more likely to cause hospitalizations or deaths. So if most of the spread of bird flu is from cows, then danger to human mortality may be low. 3, the writer of this article below writes, what keeps epidemiologists up at night is a scenario where bird flu gains the ability to spread efficiently among humans. For the writer concludes, I fear that the apparent mildness of infections in the United States has confounded calls to act more decisively. Agricultural and health authorities were slow to look for the virus in dairy herds, reimburse affected farmers, and answer important research questions, and national strategy for testing milk began in December 2025, months after the virus was found in dairy cows. 5, the writer compares United States government response to COVID-19 to government response to bird flu under RFK Jr. During the early stages of COVID-19, the first Trump administration underestimated the threat, repeatedly assuring the public that the risk to the population was low. While the future course of H5N1 is more difficult to predict, the administration should adopt a no-regrets policy, doing everything it can to prevent the worst-case possibilities and resisting the temptation to downplay potential dangers. It is possible that H5N1 will never make the jump to spread human to human. After all, it has not done so yet, but we should not give it the opportunity. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, March 25th, 2025. Bird flu has long been a top contender for starting the next pandemic. Between 2003 and 2023, there were 882 cases of H5N1 reported in humans worldwide, resulting In 461 deaths, this suggested a staggering mortality rate around 50%, a warning of the H5N1 deadly potential. The vast majority of infections and deaths were before 2020, but a few years of quiet ended in 2024 when America became the epicenter for human infections around the world. And there was something else about the US cases: they were nowhere near as severe. As before, the virus had been mostly tied to poultry, but in America last year it began circulating in dairy cows, as well. It is also worth remembering that a virus does not need a mortality rate of 50% to devastate society. Some scholars estimate that the mortality rate of the 1918 flu pandemic was most likely only around 2 or 3%. To United States formula of fries and Froot Loops. Washington bends to the Kennedy MAHA agenda. RAWSEP view what is on the RFK Junior to-do list. 1. Treat measles with vitamin A instead, using the preventive measure of vaccination. 2. Use beef tallow instead of seed oil for frying food. 3. Use vegetable dyes in Froot Loops instead of chemically based dyes. 4. Prohibit candy, soda, and chips from being bought with food stamps. And 5. Ban cell phones because they cause cancer. RAWSEP critique any health reasons for using vitamin A and beef tallow rather than using vaccination or using seed oils are unproven. Any health reason for banning cell phones because they cause cancer is unproven. Top RAWSEP excerpt. Biomedical researchers say that if he really wanted to make America healthy, RFK Jr. would block the MUST Department of Governmental Efficiency from targeting the scientific enterprise of the United States by reducing jobs and cutting grants. I think he has to take the blame for it. He is destroying science in America, said a pioneer in nutrition research at the Harvard School of Public Health. At the height of the coronavirus pandemic, Kennedy was identified as one of the top spreaders of misinformation by the Center for Countering Digital Hate, which listed him as one of the disinformation dozen. His Instagram account was suspended in 2021 and reinstated in 2023 when he began his presidential bid. Some of his assertions, public health experts say, have been just plain wrong. Kennedy appears to be largely ignoring government experts on the measles outbreak in Texas. RAWSEP view of how the Trump administration is undermining one of the RFK Jr. goals. The Trump administration is taking actions that would seem to undermine some RFK Jr. goals, such as disbanding an expert committee studying how to spare infants from a deadly bacteria that contributed to the decision in 2022 to temporarily shut down an Abbott Nutrition infant formula plant. From the article headline, public health leaders are horrified by the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. approach to measles, but government and industry are responding to him. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, March 25, 2025. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health secretary, is offering a new twist on President the Trump Make America Great Again slogan that touches a wide range of food industries. He makes powerful industries and civil servants uncomfortable. Holding forth from his newly powerful perch as head of the Department of Health and Human Services, there has been little public pushback. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention posted information about vitamin A on its website after Kennedy promoted it as a measles treatment, to the consternation of public health officials who want him to advocate forcefully for vaccination. A fast food chain announced it had RFKD its French fries by ditching seed oil for beef tallow, a type of rendered beef fat that is similar to lard, despite cardiologists who say it poses risks to the heart. Kennedy instructed food executives to rid the food supply of artificial dyes. Public health experts still have serious concerns about Kennedy, whose skepticism of vaccines has colored his response to a Texas measles outbreak. Last week, Kennedy proposed banning cell phones in schools, an idea with bipartisan backing, but RFK Jr. made an unsubstantiated claim that cell phones produce electromagnetic radiation that can cause cancer. So far, Kennedy also appears to be largely ignoring government experts. He has not had any in-person or virtual briefings on measles from infectious disease experts at the CDC, according to 2 people familiar with the response to the Texas outbreak. Instead, he receives written reports from the agency, an administration official said. Kennedy meets daily with career leadership at HHS, the CDC parent agency, to discuss matters including measles. Health officials in Texas say the Kennedy messages have been confusing. The director of public health in the city of Lubbock said she is having trouble persuading parents to vaccinate their children because they think vitamin A is protective like the vaccine. But Kennedy allies were thrilled when the CDC added a mention of vitamin A in its measles advisory on its website. A neighbor of Kennedy in Los Angeles said he is working to identify new members of the CDC vaccine advisory committee. A panel, Kennedy says, is rife with conflicts of interest. The Kennedy inner circle seems to be divided into 2 camps: those like who are drawn to him because of his stance on vaccination, and those whose focus is nutrition and chronic disease. On Monday, the governor of West Virginia signed legislation banning certain food dyes from school lunches after a MAHA moms meeting. The White House posted video of Kennedy and some of his guests on social media stumbling over how to pronounce food ingredients like riboflavin. Kennedy posted photos with a message to the women: "You got me where I am today, and I will not let you down." 3. Europe, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Poland, and Italy, dubbed the E5 in defiance of Donald Trump. Is a European Security Council emerging? RAWSEP view from the article headline. The good news is that European powers are uniting in support of Ukraine. The bad news is that Trump pulled the rug out from under Europe, while autocratic Russia is threatening not just Ukraine, but the other democratic European nations. From the article headline, with the US threatening unilateral withdrawal even from the top NATO military post, 5 European nations must fill the vacuum. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, March 25, 2025. As Trump races to seek an accommodation with Putin at the expense of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, European leaders have discovered to their dismay that neither NATO nor the EU is in a position to provide security guarantees for Kyiv. Trump has nixed any NATO role in Ukraine, and Viktor Orban of Hungary has blocked any EU consensus. A coalition of the willing has brought nations together in varying configurations to try to bolster Volodymyr Zelensky and pull together a possible security force for Ukraine in case of a ceasefire. At its core is a group of 5 European powers: the UK, France, Germany, Poland, and Italy, dubbed the E5, which which has the makings of a durable, if informal, Security Council. Between them, these 5 nations have most of the economic output, military forces, and political clout of Europe. Britain and France are the only nuclear powers in the only permanent members of the UN Security Council in Europe. Germany has the biggest economy in Europe and has just loosened its constitutional debt brake to unleash a massive surge in defense spending. Poland is the biggest defense spender proportionate to gross domestic product of NATO and will soon have the biggest army in Europe. The E5 is not an ideal format. The 8 Nordic and Baltic states that are leaders in European defense and resilience deserve a voice. On the other hand, the seat at the top table of Italy owes more to its legacy status as a southern founder member of the EU and to the political ties of Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to Trump than to willingness of Rome to take any military risks for Ukraine. The French President Emmanuel Macron first raised the need for a European security initiative in 2017 to mitigate the geopolitical damage from the British vote to leave the EU. Nothing came of it then because Brexit had just happened. Macron tried again after the full-scale invasion by Russia of Ukraine in 2022, leading to the creation of a 44-nation European political community that brought together leaders of free Europe for strategic discussions. Last September, Europe appeared to have settled into a holding pattern of helping Ukraine just enough to keep its head above water, but not enough for it to prevail. A NATO official said it may take a second shock of the magnitude of a full-scale invasion by Russia to jolt Europeans out of their complacency and spur them to take more radical collective steps to boost their own defenses. The Trump return to the White House has delivered that shock. Trump, as president, adopted the Moscow narrative on the origins of the war, branded Zelensky a dictator, subjected him to a humiliating ambush in the Oval Office, and cut off arms and intelligence for Kiev. He riled allies with demands that the U.S. take over Greenland, part of EU member Denmark, retake control of the Panama Canal, and absorb Canada as the 51st state of the U.S. Europe is crying out for leadership. Germany is finally ready to answer. London and Paris have taken the lead in trying to moderate Trump and prevent him selling out Ukraine, while organizing a European mobilization to support Kiev. The European Commission has put forward a collaborative rearmament plan centered on 150 billion euros in EU loans. The UK, France, Germany, and Nordic countries are working on a phased European takeover of U.S. NATO responsibilities over 5 to 10 years to be put to Trump. Before a NATO summit in June, a de facto European Security Council may limit the damage from the Trump geopolitical wrecking ball and prevent a security vacuum in Europe. Trump may vacate the top NATO military post of Supreme Allied Commander. Europe, which has existed since 1951 with Eisenhower in the role. The transition may be sudden, unilateral, and chaotic rather than gradual, consensual, and negotiated. That would be a true stress test of whether Europeans can handle their own security in an increasingly lawless world of predatory great powers. For France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany, the Trump policies worry scientists. France and others put out a welcome mat. RAWSEP view. The good news is that fired United States federal scientists doing vital research have a place to go in the European Union. The bad news is because of Trump policies, the United States is experiencing a scientific brain drain. From the article headline, European universities have begun recruiting researchers who lost their jobs in the Trump cost-cutting efforts or are anxious over perceived threats to academic freedom. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, March 25, 2025, just hours after opening its new program for American researchers called Safe Place for Science in reaction to Trump administration policies. Aix-Marseille University received its first application. Since then, the university in the south of France, known for its science programs, has received about a dozen applications per day from what the school considers scientific asylum seekers. Other universities in France and elsewhere in Europe have also rushed to save American researchers fleeing drastic cuts to jobs and programs by the Trump administration, as well as perceived attacks on whole fields of research. At stake are not just individual jobs, but the concept of free scientific inquiry. They are rushing to fill huge holes in collective research caused by the cuts, particularly in areas targeted by the Trump administration, including studies of climate change, public health, and environmental science. It could mean the reversal of the long-term brain drain that has seen generations of scientists move to the United States. This program is to declare what is happening in the United States is not normal, said Eric Burton, president of Aix-Marseille University, which has earmarked 15 million euros, nearly $16,300,000 for 15 3-year positions. He said the number of openings was not much, but the goal was to give them a little hope in France. Aix-Marseille University is considered a leader in the push to bring in American researchers. Since that program started, a cancer research foundation in Paris announced it was immediately putting up 35 million euros to welcome American cancer researchers, and last week 2 universities in Paris announced they were offering positions to American scientists whose work has been curtailed or halted by the Trump administration. A European Commission spokesperson said a meeting was being planned to coordinate the most effective response to the Trump administration cuts to scientific research in Brussels. 2 sister universities, Vrije Universiteit Brussels and University Libre de Bruxelles, said they plan to market to American students 36 postdoctoral positions open to international researchers. The positions, largely funded by European Union money, will focus on research and climate in the Netherlands. The Minister of Education, Culture and Science, Eppo Bruins, announced that he wanted to set up a fund in the very short term to attract leading scientists in a variety of fields. While he did not mention Trump directly, he hinted at it to the Dutch House of Representatives. The geopolitical climate is changing, which is currently increasing the international mobility of scientists. He wrote, several European countries are responding to this and are going to attract international scientific talent. A German economist who is member of the leading economic council in Germany urged European governments to increase investment in science to attract out-of-work researchers from the United States. 5. Germany. The new parliament of Germany is sworn in with women, a rarer sight. RAWSEP view. The good news is that Germany has lifted its debt brake, allowing Germany to access money to truly help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. The bad news is that the CDU-CSU, which now leads Germany, has a lower percentage of women MPs than the previous leader, the SDU, had. From the article headline, the class of lawmakers taking office is noticeably more male and less diverse than the constituency will represent excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, March 25, 2025. 3.5 years after the only woman to serve as Chancellor, Angela Merkel retired. German national politics seems to be backsliding when it comes to gender parity. The new German parliament that was sworn in on Tuesday is more male, and then the one before it only 32% of the 630 new lawmakers are women, a drop from 35% when the last parliament was formed in 2021. The number of women in the highest elected body has been stagnating since 2013, when it hit a high of 36%. One reason for the loss of women members is the political drift to the right in Germany, where right-wing parties tend to have fewer female lawmakers in the parliament, the Bundestag. Women make up only 12% of the hard-right alternative for Germany, known as the AfD, 23% of the MERS. Conservative Christian Democratic Union, 25% of its Bavarian-only sister party, the Christian Social Union, and 42% among center-left Social Democrats. Only among the smallest parties in parliament, the Greens and Die Linke, both on the left, are female parliamentarians in the majority. When Olaf Scholz formed his cabinet in 2021, he vowed that he would name as many women to be ministers as men. That balance stayed in place until Christine Lambrecht, the defense minister, was forced to resign after several missteps and was replaced by a man, Mechthild Heil, who leads a group of women in the MERS party, went public with her concerns about the subordinate role women play in the party, writing a letter to MERS and demanding that women hold 50% of the leadership roles in parliament. I can give you many examples of really competent women who are not even sitting on the negotiating teams now without women present during negotiations. She said important issues could be missed. One reason so few women are represented is that the pool of candidates is relatively small. Many women, she said, have to deal with dual pressures of work and raising a family. Another problem, she says, is that many networks within political parties, especially when it comes to the Christian Democratic Union, formed years ago when even fewer women were in position of power. 6. German parliament sits for first time with AfD as main opposition. RAWSEP view. The good news is that a coalition between the CDU-CSU and the SDU has quickly formed. The bad news is that the firewall against the neo-Nazi AfD must be stronger against a larger opposition in the AfD, just elected. From the article headline, far-right party doubles its number of seats while Chancellor in waiting Friedrich Merz hopes to form government before Easter. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to Residents Against Wood Smoke Emission Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The Guardian, March 25, 2025. The 630 members of the Bundestag, 230 of whom are newly elected, will sit in parliament. The AfD has doubled its number of seats to 152, while centrist parties are overhauling the German military and fiscal policy in response to rising threats to European security. The MPs taking seats on Tuesday range in age from 23 to 84. The youngest is Luc Hasse, student from the far left Die Linke, who has promised to give away most of his €11,000 a month salary. The oldest is Alexander Galland, a former journalist from the AfD, who in 2018 downplayed Hitler and the Nazis. The new parliament contains about 100 fewer MPs than the previous one. Fewer than a third of MPs in the new Bundestag are women, slightly below the share in the previous legislature. The gender inequality is lowest in the Greens, with women 61.2% of MPs, and highest gender inequality is in the AfD, with women 11.8%. Women are also greatly underrepresented in the center-right, with women 22.6% of MPs in the Christian Democratic Union CDU, and women 25% of MPs in the Christian Social Union CSU. The CDU/CSU has nominated the CDU party treasurer Julia Klockner to be Bundestag president, a position similar to that of the speaker in other countries. Tense coalition talks are underway between the CDU/CSU, the largest faction in parliament, and the Social Democratic Party SPD. The chancellor in waiting Merz hopes to form a government before Easter. The probable incoming government scored an early win this month after securing the support of the Greens to amend the constitution and loosen the debt brake of Germany. The debt brake lift, approved on Friday by the Bundesrat, a legislative body akin to an upper house of parliament, paves the way for a debt-financed package of investments in defense infrastructure and climate action. The proposal would have failed to in this new parliament, which contains a blocking minority from the AfD and Die Linke, who opposed sending weapons to Ukraine. 7th March 25, 2025. The New York Times headlines: United States, a car reporter on Elon Musk and Tesla. The New York Times United States, a critic whose beat is on occasion a laughing matter. The New York Times United States book review, Rebellion 1776, by Lori House Anderson. The New York Times United States, emboldened by Trump AI companies lobby for fewer rules. The New York Times United States, FDA approved artificial blood vessel despite warnings. The New York Times United States, Hillel, the campus Jewish group, is thriving and torn by conflict. The New York Times United States, how crises on colleges' campuses might affect students. The New York Times United States, in a shift more Republicans want government investment in children. The New York Times United States, layoffs and unemployment grow among college graduates. The New York Times United States, leaked war plans and the trouble with off-channel messaging. The New York Times United States, Leonizing Mark Twain. Conan O'Brien subtly skewers Trump. The New York Times United States, Live updates the Trump war plan security breach may dominate intelligence hearing. The New York Times United States, on fighting oligarchy tour. Bernie Sanders channels the Grateful Dead. The New York Times United States, Opinion, the RFK prescription for bird flu is dangerous. The New York Times United States, Opinion, the Trump environmental agenda is actually toxic. The New York Times United States, Opinion, what is the Doge real goal? The New York Times United States, PBS and NPR prepare for a showdown with Congress. The New York Times United States, Signal leak. Live updates, Trump defends national security advisor after war plan security breach. The New York Times United States, Social Security buffeted by turmoil awaits a new leader. The New York Times United States, Trump campaign aide Chris Lachivita sues the Daily Beast for defamation. The New York Times United States, Trump leads a machinery of misinformation in second term. The New York Times, United States. Trump nominates Susan Menares to lead CDC. The New York Times, United States. The Trump team calls Europe pathetic in leaked Signal group chat messages. The New York Times, United States. U.S. infrastructure improves, but cuts may imperil progress. Report says the New York Times, United States. Washington bends to the RFK Junior MAHA agenda on measles, baby formula, and French fries. The New York Times, United States. Why Washington and Wall St. have problems with off-channel messaging. The New York Times, California. A photographer on the ground during the LA fires. The New York Times, New York. Adams uses agency tracker to control messaging on Trump. The New York Times, New York. Columbia faculty protests as Trump officials hail university concessions. The New York Times, New York. Columbia student hunted by ICE sues to prevent deportation. The New York Times, Texas. How is South Texas court system is failing poor defendants. The New York Times, West Virginia bans 7 artificial food dyes citing health concerns. The New York Times, France. As the Trump policies worry scientists, France and others put out a welcome mat. The New York Times, Germany. In the new parliament of Germany, women are a rarer sight. The New York Times, Russia. Is Russia an adversary or a future partner? The Trump aides may have to decide. The New York Times, Ukraine. How a cheap drone punctured the Chernobyl steel shield during the Ukraine war. The New York Times, Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine hold U.S.-mediated talks in Riyadh. What to know. The New York Times, 8th March 25th, 2025. The Guardian headlines world globalization may have run its course in current form, says HSBC chair international trade. The Guardian world Christians worldwide urged to take legal action on climate crisis. Christianity. The Guardian United States, Ben Jennings on the Trump bid for the Nobel Peace Prize. Cartoon Ben Jennings. The Guardian United States, the Democratic Party has no grassroots. Bernie Sanders on how to fight the Trump blitzkrieg. Bernie Sanders. The Guardian United States, do not visit the U.S. It just is not worth the risks right now. The Guardian United States, Donald Trump is seeking to erase the United States as we know it. Lawrence H. Tribe. The Guardian United States, Doge cuts allow Musk to cash in with SpaceX and Starlink contracts. Ex-workers warn Elon Musk. The Guardian United States, the goal is to disassemble. Public health experts warn against U.S. turn to vaccine skepticism. Trump administration. The Guardian United States, exploitable flaws what U.S. adversaries could learn from White House security failure. Trump administration. The Guardian United States, Hyundai announces $21 billion U.S. investment as Trump tariffs loom. Automotive industry. The Guardian United States, I am a vet for bees. I think I might be the only one in the U.S. Bees. The Guardian United States, Hyundai announces $21 billion U.S. investment as Trump tariffs loom. Automotive industry. The Guardian United States, stunning signal leak reveals depths of Trump loathing of Europe. The Guardian Canada. In Canada, I saw how Trump is ripping North America apart and how hard its bond will be to repair. Andy Beckett. The Guardian Europe, in defiance of Donald Trump, is a European Security Council emerging. Paul Taylor. The Guardian Germany, German parliament sits for first time with AfD as main opposition. Germany. The Guardian Turkey, Ekrem İmamoğlu, jailed rival to Turkish president who could emerge stronger. Turkey. The Guardian United Kingdom, Starmer is warned against appeasing Trump with tax cut for U.S. tech firms. Economic policy. The Guardian.
One introduction. RAWSEP view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning, replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.